So carrying on. Reinhardt. Very interesting chap. So he had this thing about Legatus. Now, there's been another website that's been looking at Legatus and what they've been up to. Now, apparently Legatus have been promoting a development of housing, etc. A whole community, actually. They're building an entire town in a place called Ave Maria, Florida, which is about 20 miles east of Naples, Florida. They built this entire community. If you go look at it on Google Earth, it's not there. But if you look at it in Google Earth and you have the pictures option selected, you can see some pictures of people that have shot, taking pictures within the community. So you can see, for instance, the golf course, the big fountain, the rectory, and assuming it's still there, you can see some girl who passed out at a party with her knickers showing. So obviously the elite have drunken teenagers just like everyone else out there. So, anyway, Reinhardt has disappeared. Question is why? Why? Now, his page last week, unfortunately I can't show much of it, but he had a lot of stuff on there last week, and this was his public page. To see the more detailed information, you had to pay $720 a year to go into the website, but I obviously didn't feel like doing that. But he did have a lot of information on his public pages, some of which was incredibly interesting, and he's been looking at exactly the same kind of things I've been looking at, but occasionally he would throw in things that made no sense. He'd talk about things like healthcare, medical healthcare and business and offshoring of healthcare. He would talk about labor. He would talk about how labor is being devalued, etc., etc. All kinds of weird things. And it was all cryptic messages and pictures and very strange. So it took me quite a while to figure out what it was he was actually getting on at. Because he was shrouding in a lot of mystery. And the reason he was doing this is actually quite evident to me, because this is how my mind works. So I was really impressed with him. So, before I carry on, Reinhardt, if you're out there, congratulations. That's one heck of a website. That's one heck of a weave of different stories. And one of the points Reinhardt states categorically, he is not a conspiracy theorist. He believes this is all based on fact, and he has all of the information that he needs to prove any of it. Now, of course, if he's gone, he won't be able to, but regardless. So one of the things he was banging on about was this thing called a synthetic CDO. Now, a CDO is a collateralized debt obligation. Okay. Now, basically what this is you know, a fund that investors would buy into, and they would get a return on the money. I won't go into the really deep technical stuff. If you really want to check it out, it is linked here. You can go find out what a synthetic CDO is. But essentially, one of the contract terms of synthetic CDO basically states if, you know, 9 of the hundreds of companies, you know, that are backing up this particular debt instrument, if 9 of them go bankrupt, the CDO disappears, and more importantly, the investor has to fork over all of the money for the CDO. So if you buy into a $20 million synthetic CDO, and 9 companies go bankrupt out of the hundreds listed, you've got to come up with $20 million and give it to them. Who's them? That would be the banks. Now, I was trying to connect it all. So what has this got to do with Legatus? Now, the thing about Legatus is they're very well placed in the Catholic Church, and more importantly, they are primarily American, although they do have a member branch in Ireland. Well, they are in Ireland. They are, you know, Catholics. So the thinking is, okay, so these Legatus people will trigger the bankruptcies, or some of the bankruptcies, to force these synthetic CDOs to default, which means that investors around the world will suddenly lose all their money. So who are the investors in these synthetic CDOs? Well, they are normal investors, so rich people all over the world. But there's also things like municipalities, school boards, charitable groups, all over the world. Countries, even, and small banks all over the world have put their money into these synthetic CDOs. What Reinhardt's theory is there's going to be a collapse of the dollar, which is starting, but more importantly, these members of Legatus are going to trigger bankruptcies. And they're going to do it either with, they're going to devalue the dollar, or they're actually going to force certain companies to go bankrupt, etc., etc., etc. And in turn, these bankruptcies will then trigger these synthetic CDOs to fail. And the money, essentially it's like a margin call, and the money will flood back to the banks. The banks will become full of capital. The credit crunch will be over. But in the process, the countries, the investors, the municipalities, the school boards, the whatever, they're going to be broke. They're going to be turned into nothing. It's going to create absolute panic in the markets. The market will completely collapse. When the market collapses, they'll probably stop trading on the markets. Governments will step in, shut the markets, shut the banks. And what was witnessed in 1932 will be repeated. But the money, the capital that comes out of our labor, will be sucked into the banks. And I wonder who the major investors of these banks are. One of the other things he pointed out was this investment group called Cerberus Capital Products, or Capital Markets or something. One of the directors of this particular investment company is called Dan Quayle. Now, the Legatus video on the Legatus channel on YouTube explains how they're getting their members and what members have to do and so on and so forth. And there's a lot more information in the links here. Go research this stuff. If Reinhardt is right, the market is going to collapse completely on Friday of next week. The 9th will probably be decline in the dollar, a sudden call on these synthetic CDOs. And the panic that follows afterwards will completely destroy countries all over the world. What can we do? We're just little peons. We got nothing to do with this. Well, I'm thinking Reinhardt, for instance. He's made a killing on this. This insider information he's probably got tons of money. He's run off to the hills. We're never going to hear from him again. I mean, at $720 a year, get a few thousand people doing that, you got a few million right there. Invest that in shorting banks and shorting dollar. He's set for life. He's not an elite. No. He wants to screw them. And what has he done? He's told all of us about it. What does he want us to do? He wants us to riot and have a revolution. Go and hang these bankers, electrocute them for doing this to our countries. You know what? I kind of agree with him. It's about time in the UK that everyone started protesting and actually doing something about all this crap. Same thing over in the US, in Canada and Australia. Start protesting the crap your governments are getting up to. Peace, everyone. When peace fails, don't panic. Think about things. I will speak to you later. Bye.